So turns out I was not cisgender. I have known this for many years. However, maybe me recounting how I figured that out might help you figure out if you are transgender or cisgender. So to get the definitions out of the way, cisgender just means someone that is happy and feels comfortable with the sex they were assigned at birth, whereas a transgender person might get assigned a sex and not feel comfortable with the gender associated with it. For example, when I was brought into the world, so to speak, the doctor looked at my parents and said, "Yeah, that's a boy." So turns out, that didn't exactly pan out as expected, now did it? So that would be an example of someone that's transgender. Someone that's transgender gets assigned a sex, they don't like it, so they feel they align differently than what was expected of them. So when you are a little kid and you're trying to explore the world and figure out who you are, it can be a bit hard to figure out your gender because, well, you know, it was assigned to you, right? It's hard to rebel against what was given to you, but it can happen. So if you, lovely viewer, are watching and thinking, "Oh, yeah, I was assigned this gender, but I don't like it very much," you don't have to live as that gender. It's okay. Don't worry. You don't have to be completely miserable as that gender. If you feel happier as a different gender, go for it. That's my big tip. But this video is mostly focused on how I figured it out, right? So, you know, I was a 4-year-old once. I was a 6-year-old once, etc., etc. How did I figure it out? So as a disclaimer, I figured out my gender pretty early. However, I didn't act on it till later. However, don't view the timeline I figured stuff out as a metric of when you should have. That'd be a little silly. Everyone figures it out at various stages of life, and there are people younger and older than me that figured it out at various stages of life, right? So let's not try to normalize that we have to figure it out the second we exit the womb, because we have other stuff to think about when we exit the womb, now don't we? Thing is, being trans is a very important part of our life, but we still have everything else around it. So for me, at least, it wasn't immediately at the forefront because I was busy being like a 3-year-old trying to walk. So understandably, it took a little bit before I did anything that I can even remember that indicates anything gendery. So we're going to explore my first ever memory in my entire life. Or at least my second. The first might be a kid throwing sand at me in preschool, but I think this first memory is a lot cooler, so we're going to go with that one. So when I was about 4 years old, my cousin came to visit. It was a regular little play hangout thingy. However, what we chose to play was kind of interesting. So we opted to basically recreate a pregnancy. And by that I mean getting me to be the pregnant person, and she played the doctor that helped deliver it. Now, why did a bunch of 4-year-olds do this? I don't know. Like 4. How did I even conceptualize what giving birth is even like? It's hard to say. Either way, I grabbed a random green blanket and wrapped it around my body as if it was a dress. I sat on my parents' bed because they were suspiciously not anywhere near us, I guess. That's probably why this happened. I pretended to give birth as a 4-year-old. And it was a very successful pregnancy. They were a wonderful baby. Don't worry. I can presume we kind of forgot about role-playing the baby after we gave birth. The point is, as a 4-year-old, I wore a dress. I wrapped a blanket around like a dress, and then I pretended to give birth. I don't have much explicit detail of what we thought birth was or how it's performed, but we did it. And I remember specifically afterwards, we're like, now what? And then we're like, we gotta do our makeup. So I got my cousin to like wave their hands in front of me like it's an ASMR video. and pretend to put makeup on me. This actually was how I learned what various makeup things were called. She'd be like, "I'll do you blush, ma'am," and then just doing this. So that memory obviously stuck. You could argue this is when my egg cracked, but there's some reasons why I didn't really act on it immediately. Reason number one, I was 4. Are you expecting me to know that I could just do that? Like, I wasn't exposed to trans people. It was like, when I was 4, it was 2004. Not much exposure to trans people, I won't lie to you. And I guess I just didn't think that was a thing you could do. So I never asked. I just continued life, and they said I was a boy, so I lived as a boy. However, there were some instances where that was not always the case, huh? So pretty early into life, I'm going to approximate roughly when I was like 6 or 7. Somewhere in that range, I started secretly sneaking around, grabbing girls' clothes and wearing them. And I specifically remember my mom had this like big red dress or something. And it was notable to me because otherwise my mom would always wear very like gender neutral clothing at the time. So this is the first time the house had a piece of girls' clothing that's explicitly feminine. So obviously I had to wear it. So this is a really long red dress. I wouldn't wear a dress like this nowadays. It kind of just goes straight down. It doesn't flare out like I normally like. And there was some red high heels that were with it as well. Now, because I was 6, the shoes didn't fit, as you can imagine. But I tried. I really did. I remembered I wore it. I then realized my parents were very quickly gonna figure that out. So I immediately changed out and then placed the dress on the ground in the bathroom, thinking no one would know. So a bit of an awkward part, my parents sat us down, everyone in my family, and we were told that the person that put the dress on the bathroom ground needs to announce themselves. Somehow I didn't get blamed for it, my sibling did. And I must confess, I did not own up. My bad, I was 6. So yeah, he got blamed for that. Now you could argue that would have been a perfect opportunity to come out, but it would be really risky. I don't know what would have happened. I think at that moment a lot, but ultimately I just kind of went, nah, not me. So that was a bit embarrassing, I won't lie to you. But I learned since then. I have a video about how to secretly transition. I learnt tips later on how to, not get caught. That was the only time I got caught in my entire transition. So I'm proud of it only being my first attempt. But I got progressively sneakier. Then, another sign I wasn't cis. The second I had access to the internet, YouTube, back then YouTube wasn't as aggressive with recommending you things. It was more, you would actually use the search bar, which is a foreign concept today because if you use the YouTube search bar, chances are you're going to be recommended 4 YouTube shorts, a video tangentially related, and then a downfall of a YouTuber you don't know. YouTube recommended is a bit odd nowadays, now ain't it? But back then, if you search something, you usually got something kind of similar. Though when I searched up Mario as a little kid, it showed a video I definitely should not have watched, so it wasn't always good. Maybe it was never good. But curiously, my little kid self, in her wisdom, somehow came across makeup videos of boy to girl makeup transformation or boy turns into girl with makeup. I'm not going to say I searched these up intentionally, it just appeared on my recommended in a time where it didn't really do that. I don't know how this happened. I don't remember that well. However, for me, in order to find these, I likely typed boy turn into girl. So it's curious that the first time I had access to the internet, true freedom, that's the first thing I kind of went and found, other than like Pokemon Let's Plays, but you know. I watched a lot of these videos, and arguably these videos kind of gave me hope and kind of saved my life in a way. So I owe a lot to these videos, even though most people that uploaded these don't post anymore. Except like one or two, so I'm glad they're going. I know one started a podcast, I think, so yay, good for them. But for whatever reason, that's what I did. Unrestricted internet access equals watching people do girl makeup. Figures, right? So another general sign, I used to use my DSI, like the DSI camera, to take photos, and Photoshop myself into the photos. I watched a lot of Disney Channel at times. Selena Gomez was gender goals, so I pretty much just Photoshopped my face poorly on top of Selena Gomez. I was pretty proud of it. I thought I was doing expert photo editing, however, it's a bit sloppy, as you can see. But it made me happy at the time, and I think that's the most important thing, honestly. So, tangentially related, this is a common one, but with video games, the likelihood of me picking a girl was very high. Very high. When given the option, when the professor goes, "Are you a boy or a girl?" Instantly it's like, "Ah, girl, please." But an interesting thing to note that I don't think a lot of these like transgender stories tend to highlight for some reason. Just because I liked picking the girl didn't mean I always did. There's instances where I didn't. And that was mostly when people were judging me. Usually people at school or like at social gatherings or something. Or when a parent notices. Oops, I picked the wrong one. What can I say? I'll start my save again. I was only up to the like 7th gym. It's fine. It's fine. What matters is I did play the game a lot as a girl, and I'll take that as a win. So as we enter the high school kind of era, what were some signs that I perhaps was not particularly cis? Well, lovely audience, I'll have you know, I entered a cis heterosexual relationship as a high school student, so clearly I have achieved peak cis man. Man, I couldn't be trans. I dated a girl. I was free. I was fine. That's not how it works, lovely audience. So just because I entered a cis-het relationship didn't mean it stayed one. So I keep relationship details a little vague for the sake of the privacy of said ex-girlfriend. We ended things on good terms, I'll say the least. That is the most important thing. We've lost contact, so I don't know what she's up to these days. But the point is, yeah, I dated a girl roughly when I was about 12 to about 14. I got dumped in Japan. I talk about it in my Japan video. But it was a very typical, it was a boy and a girl falling in love. But almost immediately in the relationship, I broke the news to her. I was like, oh yeah, I like wearing girls' clothes. It's really fun. I like girls' clothes. Like if I, like not that I'm a transgender, but like I like wearing the girls' clothes. So every instance I can, I will wear girls' clothes. Just so you know. I'm still not gay though. Yeah. Straight man. Yeah, so it turns out I, 1, was trans. I liked being a girl. 2, turns out I wasn't into girls that way and I ended up being a straight trans woman. I wasn't attracted to my ex-girlfriend in the way expected of me. Yeah, I was just kind of jealous of how she looked and I feel bad in retrospect. Sorry if you somehow found this video. Ex-girlfriend from the past that I won't name. Yeah, I realized this a lot later. It has good points though. So, it's good life experience. So the thing of relationships when you're trans is that whether you dated a guy or a girl or a non-binary person during your pre-transition, it doesn't really indicate anything, unfortunately. What does indicate things is how you feel about it. Just bear in mind there are trans people that are lesbian and there's trans people that are, there are trans people that are lesbian, straight, gay, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, etc. I just happen to be a straight trans girl. Fair enough. I guess that sign of possibly not being cis was, entering a relationship with a girl and not wanting to do the man stuff. Whenever there'd be like the leaning on the shoulder thing, I always wanted to be the one leaning on the shoulder, but she also wanted to be the one leaning on the shoulder. So we just butted heads. Metaphorically and literally. But I learned a lot during it, so I don't regret it. I think me regretting it isn't very helpful and kind to my past self. Sure, it wasn't going to go anywhere, but it was important at the time. And I think that's all it needed to be. So, another sign that I was probably not very cis is something I'll refer to as the bargaining stage. I thought I'd make a video about this in more depth, but essentially in transition, similar to stages of grief, there is lots of stages of acceptance, and one of them is bargaining. This is when you attempt compromises to try to still get to be kind of gender affirming, but not quite shake up the status quo. An example of this is I used to tell myself, oh, no, I couldn't be a trans girl. I'm just a full-time MTF cross-dresser. That was the term I used at the time. I'm sure if the word femboy was a thing at the time, I probably would have latched onto that, and that's fine. Which, by the way, those identities are valid in and of itself, but that wasn't me. The thing is that reality was I tried to create compromises such as, oh, I'll just wear girls' clothes all the time, but still use he, him, even though I don't like being called he, him. Oh, I don't need to change my name. That's complicated for people. I can just use dead name and just go to university in girls' clothes for 3 years. That's what I did. I confused everyone. That's the bargaining stage. There'd be people that think I'm fully out, but I wasn't really, at least to myself. Ironically, I feel like I came out as trans to the world before I came out as trans to myself, which is interesting because I figured it out so early. It's bargaining like, oh, what if I just used virtual reality and lived as a girl in the virtual world? What if I just wore girls' clothes sometimes in my own privacy? What if, like, I just dress up on certain occasions? Or what if I just, like, present super girly but still a guy? Or, like, etc, 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 etc. It's just bargaining. It's trying to achieve something that will feel a little better, but not quite what will make me happy. To be real with you, the solution for me was just to live as a girl. It worked out for me. Those were a bunch of signs that I had that I was probably not cis. Another sign that I probably was not very cis. I watched videos like these. The thing is, why you, lovely audience, might be watching this video is something only you can decide the reason of, realistically. But for me, I watched a lot of transgender YouTube videos, so much so that I started doing it myself. Fair enough, right? It's a cycle. But as a result, there was these times when I'll just be like, oh, I'm so cis, and then my entire YouTube recommended is just trans creators. Like, yeah, that recommended looks a bit different than it probably would be now for some, but yeah. That was just part of it. Trans content used to be so different. I think I've talked about it in a video, I think. But yeah, it's very different nowadays in a good way, but it's interesting. But that, lovely audience, is some of the signs that I must admit, I was not very cis. Now, some of the things I brought up in this video could probably warrant its own video, such as my past relationship and that kind of thing. But we'll see what I do. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more transgender related content, then lucky for you, if you subscribe, you will have access to weekly trans content. That's right, a trans video every week. How do I do it? I don't know. Point is, every week there's a trans video right here, posted the same time every single week. It's a cozy little time here. It's a trans channel, but without the bad stuff, without videos about bad things. Ain't that good? I think there's too much videos and too many trans channels that only talk about dunking on transphobes and doing bad stuff. This video is cozy. The other videos are also cozy. That's what we do here on the Fairy Princess Lucy YouTube channel. And for the audio only listeners, you are in fact watching the Fairy Princess Lucy YouTube channel. So be sure to remember that when you're scrolling later. Okay. As a reminder, we have a Patreon, but we also have a GoFundMe to raise money for my bottom surgery. It's very soon. Very soon I'm making the final deposit for it. So any little bit of extra would mean a lot. If there's any extra money that's raised beyond the target, that will just go towards food while I'm away. But hope you enjoyed this little video. And I will see you in the next one. Stay hydrated and know that you are valid.